Welcome to the Simple Stokes SolidWorks tutorial number 1, FRC frame design using weldments. In this tutorial we're going to go over creating profiles, adding weldment profile folder to use when you're making your structural members, basic 3D sketching, adding structural members into a part, and also design intent, which is something you can't really teach, but it's essentially how to make a part that in the future is easy to modify, and you're able to go in, make those modifications quickly and more effectively. So the first step is going to be creating the profiles that we're going to use. We'll be making two common FRC extrusion dimension profiles. A 2x1 that's 1/8 inch thickness aluminum extrusion, and a 1x1 1/16 inch thickness aluminum extrusion. Team 1671, the team that I mentor and I'm an alumni from, uses these a lot in their designs. So here we are in SolidWorks. I'm going to go in and start creating these profiles. So we're just going to sketch the profile first. The first one we're going to make is the 2x1 that's 1/8 thickness. So I'm just going to sketch a rectangle profile. And when you do this, you're going to want to make sure that you do this in a way so that the origin is in the middle. It just makes things easier. When you do weldments, you want to make sure that you always go in and add more points. So when you are making your structural member, you have a lot of different points that you can put the profile on. So I'm just going to drop in some points here, and you can see I'm kind of putting them in the midpoints on the inner rectangle and the outer rectangle, just to be safe, so I know that I have a lot of options here. Exit out of the sketch. And while I still have the sketch selected, I'm just going to save it real quick. What's really important is instead of a part, I'm going to go down, I'm going to make it a library feature part. Okay, so then you can save it to a folder location that you specify earlier. So I'm going to save this. I have a base frame, rectangular tubing. I have one made, I'm just going to overwrite it. It's very important where you place these. So I'm going to start working on the 1/16 inch version as well right now. Essentially what you do is when you make your file locations, you want to make sure that you have a correct folder set up. So that'll see, basically there's the folder that you'll pick, and then from a drop down you can specify which folder. Then there's another drop down in the weldments that will also pick what type. So for mine it was rectangular, and then I can pick the actual weldment. So that's what I'm doing here, is I'm just making these weldment profiles and I'm placing them in a file structure that I've already set up before. So like I did before, I'm going to drop in these little points so that way it's easy for you later on when you want to drop these into the assembly. In your part when you're doing your weldments. So just like before, I'm going to select that sketch. I'm going to save this in the location that I did before. However, I'm going to make sure, since this is a square one, that it goes in the square tubings folder, not the rectangular tubing. So FRC frame profiles, base frame, square tubing. I'm just going to name this probably 1x1, 1/16, just to make it a bit easier so when I can distinguish between the profiles. And you can have lots of profiles in these folders. You're not limited in any way to a certain number. You can drop them in, you can change them, you can have different versions. And this is what's great about weldments, is it really makes creating a frame structure, especially in FRC, very fast and very effectively, that you can modify it with very little issues at all. And you can see that I actually end up, by the end of this tutorial, have a FRC frame that really only took me about maybe 15 minutes to actually make. So let's go setting up the file locations. If you go in, you'll need to make a folder system so that you can use your weldments properly. The first folder that I created was called FRC frame profiles. This is just where I can put all the different kinds of profiles I want. In that folder, I'll have a base frame. Now this base frame has folders inside of it: rectangular tubing and square tubing. The individual profiles will go in either rectangular tubing or square tubing. This allows so that I can kind of distinguish between, and I can also even add more. Let's say I want round tubing or something like that. I can just make that folder, drop in profiles into the round tubing folder, and use them in weldments. But when you use the file locations in the system options within SolidWorks, when you designate your weldment profile folder, you need to pick the very top one. I marked it here so you can say use this folder. We're going to use the FRC frame profiles one. This means that when we first select our weldments, that'll be the folder we choose first. And then when we actually put our weldments in, we can drop down from the first drop down menu. We'll do base frames, and then we can determine which type of tubing we want to use. And then the last one's just picking what profile you want to use in the last folder. It seems a little complex, but if you set up a similar folder structure, then when you put your file locations in, you only have to do it once, and then it'll be there forever. And it makes it a whole lot more simple. So let's go in and find where we can change these settings. So we're going to open up the options, and in the options you can see there's one called File Locations. And then under Show Folders For, you're going to want to find your weldment profiles. It's very near the bottom. There we go. You can see I already have some in here, but this last one is the one that I added. And you can see the file, it says at the end FRC Frame Profiles. So that's the actual first folder that you select. You don't select the second or any one of the ones in between. You select that first one, and then it allows you to use your weldments in the way that you want. Creating the frame. So when we start, we're going to start by creating a 3D sketch of the frame. This makes it a whole lot simpler. We can add in vertical uprights while still having a horizontal frame in place, and it's all in one sketch. And then you can use those sketch lines that you've put in to actually use for your weldment profiles. And this makes it a whole lot simpler. You don't have to worry about different sketches on different levels. It's all in one sketch. You can hide it when you don't want to see it anymore, and it just saves you a lot of time. We're going to add in those structural members using the profiles we've designed. And let's keep in mind design intent as well. If we use our sketch correctly by dimensioning it right, we can actually modify the sketch and allow it to update the individual profiles that we've dropped in later and update the weldments so that we can change the base from a long configuration to a wide configuration relatively quickly. So let's start creating the frame. So we're going to open up a new part here. We're going to set the units to inches. And the first sketch I'm going to do is going to be on the top plane. It's just going to be an outer perimeter of the robot. So I'm just going to drop in a rectangle right now and put some dimensions in. So we'll do 36 inches by 26. There we go. Alright, I'm going to exit out the sketch so it shows the outer perimeter of the robot. Now we're going to actually make our 3D sketch. And this will be the actual frame pieces. So I'm going to put some vertical sides in right now along here. There we go. And we're going to use some of the 3D sketch relations. I'm going to click on these and I'm going to put them along the Z. We're going to dimension them away from the side, from the outer perimeter of the robot. Like that. We'll say about 3 inches on each side. There we go. Okay. Then we're going to drop in our front rails. Like that. I like dropping in these front rails instead of using sketch 1. Just makes it easier for me to keep all the frame in one sketch as well. So that way I can just hide sketch 1 when I need to. So now I'm going to put in some vertical uprights for a second level. This could be like for an electronics plate, going to the next level for some kind of mechanism, or it could just be the outer railing system for maybe a bumper mount system. You can do that as well. I'm just going to drop these in. We're going to make sure that they're all level with each other. So just putting in some 3D sketch relations. There we go, last one. Alright. I'm going to dimension these right now, give them a height. They're 10, so that's a little bit too big. We're going to change this to 5. Okay. Alright, so now we have our frame is coming along. You can kind of see a little bit of a skeletal structure of it right now. I'm going to drop in these sides. Right there we go. Exit out of the sketch. Okay, so now you can see I have 2 sketches. One that's the outer frame perimeter, so I'm going to hide that. And you can see this is basically like a skeleton of the sketch. So we're going to make sure we can see the weldments tab. We're right clicking and then selecting weldments. So you can see that I already have the base frame selected, so I'm going to base frame. type rectangular. I'm going to use our 2x1 profile we made earlier. And when I click on it, you can see that it's already given me a nice little profile of what we're going to do. If I use locate profile, it'll allow me to actually pick one of the points we placed earlier, either a corner or midpoint, and that'll be where it sweeps down that line. And using the new group tool, I can add in another group of the same profile, and you can see it's already cut itself so that it lines up perfectly with the other profiles that we already had. So I'm going to use locate profile one more time to make sure everything's good. Looks pretty good. Finish that. So there's our 2x1 bottom railing system we already have in place. So, and what we would have had to do several different parts we've done in one step. So now let's add in the 1x1 tubing. Just going to drop these in. Got to make sure our locate profiles correctly. Like that. So you can see it, the 1x1 was just dropped in. We're going to do a new group. I'm going to locate the profile on this one as well, right there. Okay. So then we have our, you can kind of see the system starting to kind of come together with the whole robot. You can start to see it come. So I'm going to drop in these other side rails, make sure the profile is good, and the new group. Middle one. Looks pretty good like that. Do that other one. Alright, so you can see we have an outside railing system. We haven't put in our vertical uprights yet. So, but this is just the outer perimeter of what could be, bumper mount system or something like that. So let's drop these in each of the corners. And you can see how, when we do this, when we locate profile, you can see how important that is. If I pick it here, you can see on the other ones, it's not going to line up. So this is a good way to see that you're going to have to do all of these other ones in a different group. It's a little bit longer to do, but you can make sure and you have really very fine control over the placement of your weldment pieces. So I'm going to add a new group for each corner. Just make sure it lines up alright. Okay, profile right there. Okay, new group. I'm going to do the last one here. We'll locate that profile as well. That corner. Okay. So now we have all of our vertical uprights in, but we're going to do a check and make sure everything looks okay. But just before we move on, you can see if I do a 3D sketch, I'll hide that. Alright, so look, some of the bodies here are overhanging. So you can use the trim extend tool to cut off. So those are the bodies that are going to be trimmed. And I'm going to cut them around these other railings. And you can see right now that I already have an overhang. So something that you wouldn't have noticed before, and this is a good test that I did so you can see that when I put in the weldment profile wrong, that I can see that's not aligning the way I want. It's overhanging a bit on each end, which isn't good. That's not what I was looking for when I do this. So I'm just going to trim these real quick, like that. Extension off and green check. So you can see it's cut those side pieces, but that top rail system we need to fix as well. So let's go in and kind of troubleshoot what's going on here. So you can see it's overhanging. That's because these side rails weren't placed correctly. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go in, we're going to have to edit and look at the groups. So it looks like group 3 was put in incorrectly. So we're just going to clear it. We'll start over. Alright, so we're just going to drop that in. And we're going to say, okay, we'll make sure you pick which hole you want correctly. You're going to have to zoom in. We're going to want that corner hole right there. So we'll locate the profile. We're going to put that in. We're just going to make sure it looks good. Okay, that's even. Our trim extend is failing because the rail system that we had before is now gone. So we're just going to delete that real quick. Alright, let's edit that again. Let's add in a new group and we'll start putting in the other profiles and we'll make sure that they're all good this time. So I dropped in the side, do a new group. Now these were the ones that were incorrect the last time. So that's when we locate the profile, we'll have to make sure we pick the right one. There we go. You can see now that it seems like it's still overhanging, so we got to figure out what's going on here. Green check. See how we still have that overhang? So we're picking the middle one. And this is where it comes down to picking the right points for your profile. That's why we added in more beforehand, so we have more options when we want to drop these in. So we're going to go and we're going to look at which group's failing. It seems like these were once again. We're just going to go, we're going to delete that. We're going to drop them in one more time. We'll do this side one. And when we locate the profile, we'll make sure we pick the right one this time. that far one, and then we'll try and see that it's too high up, so you can get a better angle by moving it around. You can see, alright, that rail's too high up. I'm going to need to change that profile again to right there in this corner. Okay, that looks good. We'll do the new group. We'll add in the other one in the other corner as well. Right there. Alright, that looks pretty good. We'll check this. Alright, now you can see all of it lines up. However, the bodies weren't trim extended, so we'll have to do that one more time. Just click these uprights. And I'm just going to click these bodies so they cut around those bodies. I'm going to fill an extension, and it should, there we go, it's going to fail because something's going on, and it's saying that the one of the bodies isn't being kept. So you can see that green one in the bottom says discard. I'm going to make sure that says keep. It gives you a nice preview of what it's going to look like. Alright, so now we have the frame all done. This was done really quickly, and we just dropped it in. Now, one of the cool things about weldments is you can actually modify your sketches in the beginning, and then it'll allow the part to update. So we're going to go into sketch 1. And let's say, you know, you're designing, and it's like, all right, we can't, you know, we don't want to do a long base anymore. We want to have a wide base. We've got to inverse these dimensions. And you don't want to go in and change every part. So you just change the dimensions in your first sketch, make sure it's rebuilt, and the robot's already gone to a wide configuration. So in a process that would have to you going in and changing each individual part, hoping your mate relations don't break, it's as easy as going into a sketch, changing those dimensions, and as long as you have the design intent in mind from the beginning, all your other weldments will update. So I'm just going to play around with the dimensions as well. So you want more of a square shape, you can do that as well. And nothing's failing because all of it's defined from that original sketch. You can change the length of your vertical rails as well if you want them closer to the frame. You can make them farther away from the frame if you want. Let's say we want to put this at 12, 10, there we go. Rebuild, and you can see that's a much higher frame, but you can also do that as well. And nothing is failing because everything's defined and related to that original sketch. So this is a really great tool that you can use, especially to get a robot done quickly. So let's go back, we'll just play with some of these dimensions again. We'll do 25, 26, 36. So we can see what this looks like with a wide configuration. And then we'll change it back to our original. So we'll do 36 here, 26 here. There we go. Alright, and then we're already back to our original frame. So we've gone through several different designs in just a couple of minutes. And this is what's so great about weldments, is that it allows you to have this great functionality to go and design robots very quickly. And then you can save this as your frame that you can use in the assembly to assemble your final bot. Final design results. We're able to assign a material to the entire base frame. We can also add mounting holes and cutouts right to the side rails for tensioning systems or hole, bearing placements for when you want to put in your wheels. And this is a great FRC frame design. You can make it very quickly. I can make one in about 15 minutes. This one took me a bit longer because I was going through and making sure I had everything done and recording over, so that took a little bit of time as well. It's easy to modify. You can just change that sketch and you can change the length of your entire frame. You can also just modify your profiles if you want to go from a 2:1 to a 3:1 or something like that. You can also you can add sheet metal plates as well, which is really cool. I've used it to, instead of having a frame that's welded together, I've had a frame that you can bolt together using different triangular cutouts, or you can have L brackets, anything like that. And you can just add those in using the sheet metal tools in SolidWorks, and it just adds them to the cut list folders. You can get an accurate frame weight, which is great, especially when you assign the materials. You're able to save bodies out as different parts. So if you have a side rail in this part that you've made your base frame in, you can actually save that body out as a side rail, and you can actually name it, side rail, FRC base, 2013, 2014, whatever year you're doing it. And then as you modify the original part with the frame that we've made, it'll update that child part with the side rail. So if you increase the length of the side rail in this frame base part that we've made using weldments, it'll change that child feature part as well. So it's a really great tool. It's not really utilized weldments as much, and this can really speed up your design process for FRC. So here we have the final frame that I put together. I've dropped in some cutouts for the tensioning systems, a hole pattern on all the members as well, just so it's easy to mount stuff to. So if you look in this cut list, it'll show all the different bodies, and we're going to update it so it'll actually put in. So it actually, SolidWorks is able to recognize duplicate parts. So you can see it's grouping the two parts that are identical together. So it's just saying, I know all these parts are identical, I'm putting it in a cut list item. I've assigned a material as well to the parts, so I can do a mass properties, and I can actually get a rough estimate of the weight. So it's 9.46 pounds, just the frame, and that's not including, won't have wheels or anything, so that's just the frame weight. So you'll have to actually get an accurate weight in your assembly. I've dropped in a belly pan as well, just using sheet metal. I didn't do any cutouts on that, just kind of dropped it in so you can see it. When we update this, you'll see that it's put it in its own cut list item as well. Right there, it's one. And you can put a bolt pattern down on that so it all mounts together. And you can drop this in your assembly. So another really cool feature that you can do is, I'm just going to save this real quick. Let it rebuild. Okay. So you go File, you can do Make Assembly from Part, Assembly. Just open Documents, you'll see that it's going to be dropped in right there. Screen check, and there we go. Let me rebuild, so there we go. So now it's dropped in the whole frame as one part in the assembly. And now you can, if you do a similar manner with your mechanism, you can do that as well, just drop in your mechanism. Or you can build, drop in transmission, drop in wheels and everything like that right in the assembly. So you look at, when I expand one of these out, that it opens, it's its own body. So the cut list, and then they're two to group together, and there's two bodies in there. So each part is actually a body. And if you right click, you can actually go down and go into Insert into New Part. So now it's in its own part, and I can save this as its own rail system. I can give it a name. I can keep it in the same folder as the base, so it's all more organized. So I'm going to do top rail robot base _1. Alright, save it. There we go. So now that part is now updated. It keeps the material as well. I can just do a weight on this part, and that's now saved as its own part. So let's do a part that we know that we can update and have it change and modify. So we're going to do one of these side rails. We're going to do the same exact process, but insert in a new part. You can see it's kept the material as well. And we're going to save this and do side rail _robot _base. There we go. We're going to save all. Okay, so now that rail system is saved. Now if I exit out of this and go back to the part, and I want to modify, let's say I want to modify my original sketch, because we're in the middle of build season and we're like, great, we need to have a wide configuration. So let's change this into a wide configuration robot. We're going to green check and we're going to rebuild. And there we go. So now the robot is now in a wide configuration. So if we save this and go back into our original, into our side panel part, so let's browse that folder where it's at. Well, there it is, side rail. I'm going to rebuild. You can see now it's gotten shorter than the original part. So let's go and we'll measure and we'll check the length on this. So you can see it's 24 inches in the wide configuration. So I'm going to go back to the robot base. Alright, so we're going to let's say we want to go back to long. We found out wide's not going to work for us. So we're going to go back to the long configuration. Rebuild. There we go. So now the bot is back to its wide long configuration from going to the wide one. So let's go back into that side rail. We'll notice it's gotten long again, and we'll just double check that using the measure tool. So now it's 34 inches. So you can see how great of a tool weldments can be when you're designing a frame. It's really simple. You make a 3D sketch, you have some profiles that you just use as a standard, and then you can have one person design a robot frame really quickly and get it done fast. Thank you for watching, and for more information and more CAD tutorials, you can go to my website at www.simplestokes.webs.com.